Hello and welcome everyone to a very belated edition of Blind Eye Live. I'm sorry I've been gone for so long. I am your host, Hunter King, Blind Eye himself, coming at you live from what should I name this place? Because I never gave it a name. Casa de Blind Eye? That'll work for now. We'll workshop it. Anyway, it is good to be back. Sorry I've been gone for so long. I have been kind of busy. I had a couple summer camps that I was doing different things for over the span of 3 weeks. I had like a week in between. I was going to stream, but I was just tired, and I was having to work up a bunch of music stuff as well for the camp for the next week. I was leader at one, like, counselor, camp counselor, team leader at one. The other, I was the drummer for the camp band. So I just had a lot going on, and I had stuff in the week in between that I also had going on to prepare for that and prepare for other things. So I'm back for the next couple weeks. I'm going to be gone again the last week of July, but hopefully I'll at least be able to stream once or twice while I'm where I'm going. Maybe, potentially, we'll figure that out. Otherwise, I might find some other way to do things. I might change, and you might notice in the background, usually you could sometimes see like the drum kit behind me, kind of, or over that shoulder. It is currently not put back up yet because, like I said, was gone, had to take that with me, and I'm thinking about doing some work, doing some changes out, so I have no idea when that's getting set back up again. Breathe. But anyway, I kind of excited, got some plans, got some schemes. So, but anyway, there's been so much that has happened. Very many things have happened. Like entire rounds of the NBA playoffs. To keep it short, the Bucks ended up beating the Nets. The Nets did not choke. The Bucks just played extremely well. The Nets had a lot of injuries. I get so tired of the negativity around things like, everything is a choke job nowadays. No one is good except for like, a handful of people who are literally the greatest at everything they do, and then everyone else is just trash or a hack. Like, our society is so stupid now. Like, it sucks to be a part of. Like, discourse on anything at this point. Now, there are choke jobs. I would argue that, and while I will say this, the Hawks stepped up, played amazingly. Nate McMillan finally are getting that the permanent, tag with the Hawks as their coach. Couldn't happen to a better, a better like guy in the coaching ranks. Guy has been undervalued for years. Indiana never should have fired Nate McMillan or let him walk, whatever. That was stupid, and it showed this season. Obviously, Lloyd Pierce really didn't have what it took to take it, or to take a team, like actually coach a winner, or at least he wasn't ready yet. Because this is the same team that Lloyd Pierce was just leading. Was leading to another like high lottery pick. It looked like, or at least it was another lottery season for Atlanta, and then Nate McMillan steps in. And, just guys just straight killing. Love him or hate him, but Trae Young's good, man. But I would still, as good as the Hawks were, if an injury to Danny Green was enough to destroy the Philadelphia 76ers, oof. And Ben Simmons. He is an incredible talent. He's an amazing, elite, historically elite defensive player. But you can't call yourself a superstar if you can't play any better than he did. You can't be a superstar player and literally have no impact or just an insanely negative impact on the offensive end of the floor. You can't. Like, Danny Green proved more valuable to the 76ers than Ben Simmons. That's crazy. And yes, Embiid got hurt for a little bit. Even so, this John Collins under Nate McMillan, I'm still not convinced or going to say he's a max player. But the man's earned his money. He's earned a big deal. Clint Capella was awesome. Clint Capella has been awesome with the Hawks. And I would rather have Clint Capella at whatever money he's going to be making on his next contract than Rudy Gobert on that max deal that Utah gave him. And that's no slight or dig at Rudy Gobert. But when you provide so little offense, or not that Gobert can't have big games because of his offensive rebounding, his rim running, stuff like that. He doesn't create offense at all. And at this point, like, as great as he is defensively, I'd rather have Clint Capella and take some of that money and spend it on better wings. Like, I'm just saying, when you look at the athleticism of DeAndre Hunter, Cam Reddish, John Collins, compared to the Jazz wings, I mean, the closeouts in that series against the Suns, was it? Yeah. No. It wasn't the Suns. The Clippers. The Clippers just wasn't existent. They didn't play the Suns. My bad. The Clippers decided, look, we'll take whatever Gobert gets, but Gobert's not that dangerous. Gobert's not going to kill us offensively. Like, he's not going to murder us. And we're going to go 5 out. We're going to pull Gobert away, and we're going to force rotations and closeouts. And here's the thing about the Clippers. This season, they were the best shooting team in the league. The Jazz may have put up a little bit more of a fight against the Suns. And not that the Jazz didn't put up a bit of a fight against the Clippers, but I mean, the Clippers beat them without Kawhi. And the Clippers, they lost the 6 games to the Suns, but they didn't have Kawhi. And, I hear all these people, man, if the Clippers don't win this year, like, Kawhi is going to bolt, PG's going to bolt. I'm like, I don't think so. I think they're 10th stake right now. Last year they kind of flopped a little. This year it was injuries. Like, Paul George played or had one of maybe his best postseason as a player. At least his best since he left Indiana, or since, like, the peak at, like, that peak where Indiana was really, really good. Like, pre-broken leg. I think they should, I would be really shocked if either of them left the Clippers this offseason. Because they both really want to be in LA, it seems like. And I think Kawhi realizes, man, if I wasn't hurt, if I could go, we're probably in the finals right now. And I'm not saying that's a fact, because I still think the Suns absolutely could have won that series, and I picked them going into that series, believing that Kawhi might be back. But please miss me with the, like, Kawhi and Paul George, or Kawhi's out of there. Kawhi can't stay healthy. That's his problem. That's the only issue for the Clippers this postseason, was he was hurt. Now, they need to do some jiggering in the offseason, but trading for Rajon Rondo, I guess they were just trying to get rid of the Lou Williams contract at the deadline because Rondo barely played. And when he did, I think playoff Rondo's gone, everyone. Narrative or fun narrative busted. I'm sorry. It's dead. And I think as we saw what happened with the Lakers this year and how much better the Clippers were when healthy this year, or when Kawhi was healthy, losing Montrezl Harrell was not that big a deal, like I expected. I have no hate for the guy, but he's not a starting big, and he's a defensive liability, just simply put. And he is dependent on shot or people creating shots for him as well. Zubac is a better player. Like I would take Ivica Zubac over Montrezl Harrell for their positions. Because Harrell's a center offensively, simply put. And defensively, I don't know if he's really a 4. Like I mean, he plays with effort, but I don't think he has the ability to guard wings or good forwards. I don't think he's not laterally quick enough. He's got really good straight line explosion and vertical explosion, what have you, but he's not a good rim protector. I'm getting kind of off in the weeds, so I wanted to kind of talk about some of these teams that went out while I was gone. The Jazz obviously have a ceiling, and people criticize like the Gobert contract. What were they supposed to do, really? What were they supposed to do? Because I'm sorry, Donovan Mitchell and some of the players they would be keeping around, or they have around on contracts, like they're too good to tank. It's possible they could get some development from Gobert, or they can figure out something, develop some unforeseen player, or if Donovan Mitchell just continues to take steps forward like he's doing, the Jazz could get better. But once again, this just comes down to, and this is why Jordan Clarkson was not my 6th man of the year. He could score in bunches. He cannot play defense at all. He is a sieve. He is a negative to your team defensively, even when he is trying. One of his best scoring games of the playoffs, he was still I want to say double digits negative. I think he scored 24 points and was double digits negative while he was on the court. And wasn't like he played 30 minutes. If you're negative against bench units or mostly bench units and you're scoring 24 points and the guys around you are solid 2+ defenders for the most part, that's an indictment. Yes, he had some games where he went off towards the end of the season, but in the playoffs, he wasn't played off the floor because they couldn't not play him. But he was a negative. Jordan Clarkson is a negative player. Simply put. Joe Ingles is really good. He's a good starter sixth man kind of hybrid guy. Really good. Royce O'Neal is a great defender, really good role player. His 3-point shot kind of comes and goes, but he shoots. I love Bojan Bogdanovic. There's players I really, really like, but there's something they're missing. And to me, as elite a defensive player as Rudy Gobert is, He's being paid too much money for that being his elite skill. Like, Clint Capella was doing, like, Clint Capella is like 85-90% of Gobert defensively. And sometimes, in some games, he's has impactful. He's not making anywhere near that kind of money. And he's making good money, but he's not making that money. Like, you tell me because if I'm remembering the salaries correctly, you look at like what Rashawn Holmes is probably going to get this offseason, or what he might get. You flip him for Jordan Clarkson, and then you flip Gobert's money for someone like, and I mean, I'm doing this kind of arbitrarily, like, obviously this, not necessarily realistic, but you just look at from a money aspect. I want to say Clarkson, and I'm going to say Rashawn Holmes is going to end up around Clarkson type money. Maybe even still a little bit less. But you flip Gobert's money for another guy, like, maybe we just go straight up with the Kings, and it's like De'Aaron Fox. Maybe Fox and Mitchell isn't like an ideal backcourt pair, but I mean, do you think the Jazz are better in that scenario? Or let's maybe look at another team. Let's see, Clarkson. I'm trying to remember what I want to say. He's making like $13 million a year. Maybe it's more than that, but I think it's like $13 million-ish a year. I think it was like, what, a 4-year, $52 million contract he signed with them last year or something like that. So if that's the case, it's 4 years, $52 million. I'm trying to think of some of like the contracts I've seen around the league for some bigs who are really good two-way players. When you look at Miles Turner's deal, Miles Turner's making in that ballpark, or maybe a little more than that. But you take him, and then it's like Brogdon's not making max money. You could trade. It's like, imagine flipping like Clarkson and Gobert for like Brogdon, Turner, and I'm trying to think of someone on the team who's maybe a bit overpaid to make the money work. Because all their contracts aren't necessarily like market value, but like maybe Jeremy Lamb, something else. I don't think the money works there, though, unfortunately, for my analogy here. I mean, I guess maybe just straight up, like, if you had... Well, they don't even really have a max player either. Yet. Atlanta. Well... Ooh, I've got it. Clarkson and Lopez. And then you flip that for like Gobert and maybe Middleton. Would Utah be better? I think Utah would be better. Imagine being able to walk out and, of course, let's just say this past season, just for sake of it, you've got a starting five of Conley, Mitchell, Middleton, Bogdanovich, and Lopez. Or maybe O'Neal. It depends on the matchups, because you're sitting here, now your bench, you've got... Your backcourt might be a little interesting. Well, maybe you jigger it to where Connolly is, coming off the bench as like a bench unit point guard and closing games with Mitchell. Like, that's your closing five or whatever. And then your bench unit would be like something smothering, like maybe you still have brought back Favors, so you've got Favors. And then you've got Ingles, O'Neal, Royce O'Neal. Trying to think of who their other like backcourt guys are. Without Clarkson, they'd probably have made some other decision like in moving people, but or in like how they constructed the roster. But I don't know. Like, it's an interesting thought experiment because like that starting five, pretty interesting. I don't know. It's just an interesting thought. But I mean, what was Utah supposed to do? Like everyone's kind of poo-pooing Utah. I mean, like they had the best record in the league this year. There's something about that that works. Like Connolly did get dinged up for a bit in the playoffs there. And Utah's done a really good job of identifying talent and player development. Like Donovan Mitchell was barely or like was at the tail end of the lottery. Joe Ingles was a guy that Doc Rivers and the Clippers were like, you're not going to amount to anything. Jordan Clarkson before Utah, I mean, he was a scorer, but I mean, everyone viewed him as kind of like I was talking about earlier, but even worse, really. Gobert was a late first-round pick, which Udoka Azubuike, I believe, was like they drafted him in the first round with like the 27th pick or something. I want to say Gobert was like a mid-20s or like somewhere maybe 27th pick, but I think he was like 23, 25. Like he was picked in the mid-20s of the first round. It's not like you're just constantly seeing stars come out of that portion of the draft or elite talents. Look at the development they've done with Royce O'Neal. I mean, you saw in the past with Paul Millsap. Like most NBA fans probably weren't even aware of how good Paul Millsap was until he went to Atlanta. But Paul Millsap was already a really, really, really good player in Utah. But I'm willing to bet on Utah's player development potentially finding some other piece and developing some other piece. They have a good front office. With that being said, kind of let's touch on the Nets real quick before we get into talking about like the first 3 games of the NBA Finals. The Nets as an organization probably look at this season as somewhat of a failure, although I feel like with their brain trust and with Steve Nash, they're sitting here like they're being realistic. And Nash even said so. Like they got hit hard by injuries. And they still weathered those storms really well. Like Kevin Durant was playing out of his mind. Blake Griffin, who earlier this year, everyone's like, this guy's over. I'm pretty sure I probably was talking about like this guy's career was over if I'm remembering correctly. Like, or he's just a shell of himself. There were times where it was like, Blake Griffin looks healthy and like maybe their 4th star at periods of time. Like, for real, like it'd be interesting to see. I'm interested to see what happens with Blake Griffin now. He's going to be the interesting piece of the offseason now. Because depending on what we know the injury risk. We know. But, man, did he look good down the stretch for the Nets in the regular season and for stretches of his playoffs? He was having turn back the clock moments. I would highly doubt that Joe Harris is going to be shooting this badly in the postseason next postseason. Because I'll say this. If we want to talk about someone choking, like Joe Harris was choking all playoffs long. And I hate using that word. But there's really no other way to say it. It's just Harris was just off. He was not on his game. He was bad shooting the ball. But based on his track record, This guy, and his track record through the season, he's an elite shooter. He just hit a bad cold stretch. And this might sound like I'm doing apologetics for the Nets, seeing as I did pick them to win the NBA title, but unlike other people, when I make a statement like, I think the Nets are the clear favorites, when they don't win, that to me isn't necessarily a disappointment. Like, I'm disappointed that injuries played such a big factor in this playoffs, although I think people tend to gloss over the fact that they tend to play a pretty big part in pretty much every postseason. Not to mention all the players and all the people bickering about it, wanting to put an asterisk next to this season too. They want to do it last season. People just want to put an asterisk next to everything. They want to. People hate everything nowadays. People, not just that people are critical or da-da-da. People hate everything. People want to hate everything. People want to hate other people. They want to hate just everything that happens. Like, there are reasons I don't like things. But I've even fallen into that trap of just like, this isn't as good as such and such. And it's never going to be as good. It's never going to be as good again. But I don't want to be that guy. And there are a lot of people, I've seen a lot of stuff on Twitter about people complaining about all the injuries and we should have had a shorter season and LeBron was right. It's like, guess who signed off on that whole condensed but 72 game season? LeBron James. Every other player in the NBA. They signed off on it. They agreed to it. You don't complain about it when you agreed to it. Oh, I was saying this all along. Oh, this is exactly what I told y'all was going to happen. Cool. You did it anyway. They could have put their foot down, but no. Their feet, sorry. They could have put the foot down, their feet down, whatever. They could have said, no, we're not doing it. We're not doing it. They didn't. They didn't. And you know what? We have had a great postseason. Basketball has been awesome. All this has been phenomenal. Yeah, Jamal Murray got hurt during the season. And that stinks for the Nuggets. Because, honestly, they probably would have been my favorite in the West if they were totally healthy. Especially after the Aaron Gordon trade. Yada, yada, yada. It sucks. That happens. It's been happening forever. I'm just going to use this example. If Bill Walton's knees hadn't have betrayed him, like, this is an NBA Hall of Famer. This is, or a basketball Hall of Famer. This is an elite player of all time. His career kind of got ruined due to injuries. Penny Hardaway's knees betrayed him. Derrick Rose's knees betrayed him. It happens all the time. Of course, Derrick Rose happened in another similar situation, although that had to do with a lockout, so it's a little different than the COVID thing, although, but it is what it is. But I'm going to use this example. The number 2 pick in the famed draft where Hakeem goes 1, MJ goes 3, Sam Bowie. Sam Bowie was an incredible basketball talent. If his legs, if his bones had not betrayed him, he probably goes on to have a Hall of Fame career. And you imagine those Blazers teams in the 80s and what their battles with the Lakers would have been like. Although, of course, this would have changed other things in the NBA too. But just the idea of Sam Bowie getting or being healthy long term could have changed NBA history. Like, injuries, it happens. And just because we knew something was going to happen doesn't mean, obviously, it didn't mitigate, or the risk of the plan did not, or was mitigated enough by whatever other factors that y'all all decided to do it anyway. And here's the thing. LeBron wants to complain because he wants to help his own historical legacy. But at the same time, he didn't want to sacrifice any more money than he did the previous season. He wanted to get as many games played as possible. He wanted to make sure everybody got as much money as possible, especially himself. But he also wants to chirp about, like, you know, this stuff so he doesn't lose any more ground to Michael Jordan in the greatest of all time race. And I still hear some people, like, talk about, like, people saying LeBron James is the greatest basketball player of all time. You are... I don't think that's necessarily I don't think that's an insane opinion. I don't think that's an opinion that should necessarily be dismissed. I disagree. But it's the stuff like that is why I disagree with LeBron being the greatest basketball player of all time, which some people are like, well, I mean, it has nothing to do with him actually playing basketball. I'm like, I think your mentality has everything to do with how you play basketball. Michael Jordan didn't phone in anything. Like, go and find a time where Michael Jordan, in a big game where his team was or got eliminated, where he just quit playing the game and made it very obvious that he was having an on-court tantrum, and he was like, "How about you guys do this for me? Oh yeah, I just want y'all to y'all win the game. I'm done carrying y'all." And what's funny is the Lakers actually, if he had tried in that last game or in that elimination game, the rest of the team was playing well enough actually in that game that if LeBron wasn't being a baby, a child, and yes, I'm calling him a child. There are things he does where he acts like a child. Kings don't get to act like children. Sorry, good kings don't act like children. Because we have plenty of kings in human history that acted like children. But a good king, a good leader, a true legend, they give everything for their people. The GOATs don't just phone it in. You find a time where Kobe phoned it in. You find a time where Michael Jordan phoned it in. You find a time where Tim Duncan phoned it in. You aren't going to find it. When the stakes are highest, there may have been times where they lost. They didn't phone it in. You look at the difference between LeBron James and Kevin Durant. I've never seen once on the court where it looked like Kevin Durant was just pouting and you do it. Go ahead. You do it. You do it. You go ahead. Go ahead. I'm not doing anything anymore. This is y'all prove y'all are worthy to have me here. Now Kevin Durant left Oklahoma City and went to the Warriors. Made a business decision. Made a decision. He made what he believed was the best decision for him in that time. That's fine. People could say he took the easy road. I don't know if I totally agree with that. Because I think he was well aware that when he did that, everybody was going to trash him for it. I think he was well aware of that. And eventually he got tired of it and he wanted to, and leaving Golden State was part of it. But I think he also wanted to get away from Draymond Green. I think he had probably had enough of that. And I can totally understand. And I'm a guy who, from a basketball standpoint, I love Draymond Green. And there's a lot about him. I love how candid and I love how straightforward Draymond Green is. Although sometimes I think he's on some BS. But I think Draymond's great. But I can understand how a guy like that, or maybe KD finally got tired or got annoyed with probably some of the things that he would do to poke him. But you look at what KD did. It didn't matter who was healthy or who was not. He gave everything every minute. That man was playing every minute of games, it seemed like. Actually, there was a game he literally played every minute. You tell me that guy doesn't want it? That guy, that winning isn't everything to him, that his team, that his fans aren't everything to him. Like, he said now that since winning a championship, like, championships aren't everything. And that I agree with, actually. But when he is on that basketball court, basketball is everything to that man. And it is the only thing that matters. For LeBron, I think his legacy matters, but I think he cares more about his legacy than basketball, actually. He cares more about being the best basketball player ever than just actually playing his best basketball half the time. And I mean, all NBA stars complain to some degree about the rest or do this and that, or sometimes, take their time getting back on defense, jogging back, conserving energy at times or whatever. But, like, when LeBron does it, it is just so blatant and flagrant and out in the open. Same with James Harden, Russell Westbrook. There's certain guys, like Chris Paul's constantly complaining. Luka Doncic complains way too freaking much. But I've never really gotten that with KD. I just haven't. He just doesn't seem as whiny. And I think that's one of the reasons I've liked him so much for so long. Like, I thought it was... I mean, I hated to see him leave OKC. And, I mean, I was really enjoying, like, those Warriors teams. But, I mean, I was super excited to see Kevin Durant there. I'm like, oh, my goodness, we're going to get to see some crazy, awesome basketball. Guess what we saw? Crazy, awesome basketball. Sometimes I feel like some of the complaints I hear, I'm like, do you not like basketball? Like, do you not like the NBA? Like, you seem to like the idea of the NBA. You seem to like some of these narratives. But do you actually like basketball? Like, do you like watching some dude curl off of a flare screen, catch the ball, rise, fire, nail a shot? Do you actually like, watching, like, a defense that is totally in sync, hitting, like, just these crazy rotations to stop, like, teams from getting open shots, closing passing lanes, closing driving lanes, just thwarting the offense with this helter-skelter, but it's like everything's kind of whirring in chaos, but everything's calculated and controlled. Like, do you not love that? You're so upset that teams that don't matter made it to the NBA Finals because Milwaukee happens to be one of the smaller markets, and Phoenix has been trash for a long time, and we've loved trashing on their organization for so long, but they don't have like LeBron or KD or whatever superstar you actually care about, even though they have Chris Paul and Devin Booker and all these fun young players and some veterans who are interesting, and they have this really cool coach in Monty Williams who I'd really love to see get a ring because he deserves it. Because he's been a great coach for a long time. Like, regardless of what role he's been a great man. He's overcome incredible tragedy. People want to trash Mike Budenholzer for the Bucks. Like, he doesn't adjust enough or the adjustments he makes are stupid. Yet all the dude does is win like tons of games every year with whatever team he's coaching because he's really good at his job. Like, I mean, for real. Do we just hate basketball? Back to it, do we just hate everything now? It sucks. It is such a drag. People are a drag in 2021. I don't care about your narrative that you wanted. This is what we got, and it's fun. Chris Paul's finally playing for a championship. He's worked his butt off. He's fought, clawed, complained, flopped, done all the good and all the annoying things to get there, and he's finally there. Can we not be happy? Giannis is finally there. Man, I remember like when he got drafted, he was draft Twitter's like darling. He was this international man of mystery. No one knew anything about him until as we learned his story, like the rough upbringing, like all the hardship his family endured. Like us witnessing the first couple years, him experiencing all these things he'd never experienced before, like slushies or ices or whatever. Just all kind of other stuff. And it's like, you see this like 6'10", like 18, 19-year-old who's enjoying things that like we used to enjoy as like little children. And like he's experiencing them for the first time like a child in a way. And it's like endearing. And then we saw him continue to grow to where now he's like 7 feet tall. And he could do everything but shoot three-pointers, although he's still better at that than Ben Simmons. You could learn something, Ben. And here I am being negative. But, like, we watched him grow into this incredible, like, bit of potential that then turned into a star, that then turned into a 2-time MVP and 1-time MVP / Defensive Player of the Year. And now he's finally here, and it's like, yeah, but we wanted the Nets. Although we're going to criticize the Nets for choking, but we really wanted the Nets. Like, the Nets should have been here, but they're not, so we hate them now, even though we really, really want them here, because we actually love the idea of them being what we wanted. But we're mad because they're not. Like, it's stupid. It's sad. It's annoying. People are becoming a drag. How about we just love something? Does anybody? I don't know. Am I crazy here? Is it not fun to like love things? More fun than like hating on them? So I've been a little bit negative for a bit here. So from here's the contrast. We're going to be positive for the rest of the show. We're going to talk about some things. Now, I may say some critical things about some things because I got another segment here a little later I want to go into. It hasn't finished yet. There's still a few more. I thought about waiting, but I'm going to go ahead and like start hitting like the ESPN, like they've got some rankings list of the top 10 players at each position and then some honorable mentions, like guys who got votes but didn't make the top 10. We're going to talk about that. And while there is one thing in particular that really irked me in this thing, and we'll get there, and you will know what it is. But I'm going to be mostly extremely positive. And even when I think someone is underrated, and I think someone's maybe overrated, I'm going to take a positive approach to those things because that's what I want to see. I want to see some more positivity. I want to see some more love, so I'm going to do that. So now, we're going to dive into this NBA Finals matchup, and man, is there not a lot to love here. Now, we're 3 games in. It is now a 2-1 series for the Suns. The Suns won the first 2 games at home pretty, convincingly. But the Bucks came back and smashed the Suns at home in Game 3. Giannis has been playing out of his mind. But he didn't get as much help in the first 2 games. He got the help. The offense came back in Game 2. The supporting cast played much better. We'll see, though, if it just ends up being kind of like one of those where it's like the home court really, really is going to matter a lot in this series. And if we're just going by history, though, like the Suns still should have the advantage, not just because they jumped out to that early 2-0 lead, but their coach compared to Bud for the Bucks, like Monty seems to have done a better job of adjusting. his team, his strategy, his lineups compared to the Bucks in the past. But we have more history with Bud than we do with Monty. So it's also possible that Monty hadn't been able to make those mistakes yet. And it's possible that Bud maybe has learned a thing or two. We'll see as we get deeper in the series. But the Bucks responded with a great game 3. Chris Paul has been incredible. And when we want to talk about injuries, Chris Paul's dealt with injuries in the playoffs. Actually, he's been dealing with a second one. It was first his shoulder. Now it's I think his wrist. But he's fighting through. He's doing it. Now, that doesn't mean that other guys who didn't fight through their injuries. Some things you can play through. Some things you cannot. Some things you can play through, but you shouldn't. Case in point, Robert Griffin III, his rookie year, he should not have played that playoff game against Seattle. That ruined his career. Him worsening that injury in that game and making it a severe injury. That ruined his career. That derailed him, and he never recovered. Sorry. Okay. Not important. Sorry, my phone was kind of blowing up. Anyway. I love this Suns team. DeAndre Ayton, I think at this point, I get that Luka Doncic was the best player in that draft. I do. And you can say that it would be better to have Luka and Booker and Paul, although Paul wouldn't be there if they had Luka. But Luka, Booker, and whatever else they could have done would have been better than Ayton. I don't know if I believe that. If they don't draft Ayton, they don't make the move for Chris Paul, they're not in this situation right now. They have done, if anything, this front office has a plan, has had a plan, and they have executed on their opportunities gloriously. DeAndre Ayton's maturity, humility, work ethic should be commended above all things in the NBA right now. That guy, instead of living up to what he believed the number one pick should be, instead of chasing his superstardom, instead he is chased being the best teammate, being the best person, being the best fit for his organization, for his team, for his friends and family. DeAndre Ayton is the kind of, if anything, DeAndre Ayton is showing a lot of Tim Duncan. I'm not saying he is exactly Tim Duncan. That's not what I'm saying. But he is being that elite team player. Maybe you could, a more recent comparison, maybe compare him to a Chris Bosh, but Ayton is playing awesome, and he is so good. He is so talented that he honestly helps. I say he honestly helps. What he has been doing in this postseason is basically dictating how the opposing team's bigs can play. He is big enough, strong enough, athletic enough, and good enough defensively on the block. You aren't posting me up, and no one's going to have to double. I've got you. Oh, you're going to run pick and roll? Well, I can smother that. I can play in between. I can snuff this pick and roll out with my play. Oh, you're going to put stretch your player on the court? That's fine. I can follow them around. I can impact the game regardless. I can cover a lot of space. And then I'm going to punish him on offense. In the post. On switches. And it's not even a lot of times that he has to even post. It's that when he has a mismatch, he uses his physicality. He doesn't even have to post up. He just has to move to spots and just immediately do stuff. He's also got silky touch from outside the painted area. He's been crazy good in the postseason. Hyper efficient, great rebounding, great defense. And you might be like, yeah, but he's not getting like tons of blocks or steals or anything. That's true. Because he's doing such a good job of keeping the ball away from wherever he is or getting the ball out of the hands of whoever's right in front of him, that he doesn't have to do any of those things. Ayton's been outstanding. And he's far more versatile as a player than Rudy Gobert. So I keep saying it, but props to DeAndre Ayton. And I think anyone who from right now is still saying that drafting Ayton was a mistake. Even over Doncic, if the Suns are leading in the NBA Finals right now, even if they lose, I'd probably say well, at this point they are a better team than the Mavericks, and they have been more successful than the Mavericks, or are now more successful than the Mavericks. They're in a better spot right now. Now you might say yeah, but Chris Paul's going to retire at some point, and is probably any year now is going to really hit the decline. That's true. Long term, Dallas definitely has as much or more upside, but Phoenix still has Devin Booker. Devin Booker's still really young. He's got plenty of runway in front of him. Ayton has more improvement to go in front of him, as do Michael Bridges and several other young players. Cameron Johnson has been an awesome pick. I remember when everyone was just screaming at the top of their lungs that the Phoenix was stupid for trading the 6th pick for the 11th pick and Dario Saric and then drafting Cam Johnson. What a reach. What an overdraft. Cameron Johnson's been pretty good. If he's open in the corner, it's pretty much money that he's going to make it. And he's versatile enough defensively, and he puts out enough effort, and he's smart enough that he's a good team defender. You have Devin Booker, you have DeAndre Ayton. Now you have Chris Paul, you drafted Michael Bridges as well. At this point, it's kind of maybe the Cam Johnson pick was a calculated decision. And look at what they've done with Cameron Payne. They've kind of helped Cam Payne, resurrect his career. And if I'm not mistaken, Cam Payne was drafted either the pick before or the pick right after Devin Booker. Let that sink in for a moment. Okay. And they've done a really good, he's a really solid bench guard. And their depth is so good. A guy like Javon Carter, who has been pretty good with the Suns, especially defensively, and he's really improved his three-point shot. He's not really played a lot, if at all. There's most games I don't think he's even played in, which really kind of surprised me. I thought he'd have at least some kind of small role because of his defense, but they haven't really needed that. Saric has been solid as, a bench big. Jay Crowder's been really, really nice, in that starting 4 spot. Him and Michael Bridges and Cam Johnson that's a really nice 3-piece, combo as combo forwards. The rotation's really nice, really solid. So, and they're well coached. The front office has done a really good job. A lot of people were poo-pooing at James Jones's credentials, which he's not working alone. He's got certain things he focuses on. There's other people doing other things. They have their front office, it seems really well put together. It seems like everybody understands their role and is thriving in it. It seems like the organization has really great communication. It seems like there is a completely unified vision. There is no difference in objectives between the front office and the coaching staff. It seems like everybody. It doesn't seem like, well, the front office is planning long term while the coaching staff is trying to maximize as much in the present. It seems like everyone's goals are aligned in unison, which is how it should be. I don't know. Suns are, great story. It's really cool to see them make it this far. And put me in a tough spot because they're going up against the Bucks, and I love both of these organizations, and they have players that I'm really rooting for. Like, man, Giannis. Anyone who can root against Giannis, and enjoys, and wants Giannis to fail, or wants, or has any animus toward Giannis Antetokounmpo, you just must be the saddest, sorriest human being. I'm sorry. Dude is awesome. Great personality, off the court, and he's incredible on it. He's so unique on it. Chris Middleton, and you look at the stars for this team. None of these guys were lottery picks to my knowledge. I don't think Drew Holiday was a lottery pick. I might be wrong, but he was Drew Holiday was an elite prospect. Chris Middleton was a second-round guy, and I think a late second-round guy who the Pistons just discarded in a trade with the Bucks inexplicably. Giannis was the 15th pick in the draft in what was historically a very weak draft, but he has been a all-time great during our generation. He's on pace to have one of the greatest careers in NBA history, most dominant careers in NBA history. It's remarkable. I think out of their main rotation guys, the highest drafted guy was Brook Lopez, who I think was I can't exactly remember when he was drafted, but I want to say it was maybe the 10th pick or the 8th. I think it was the 10th pick. None of these guys were top 3, top 5 picks. I think out of all of them, and going deeper in their rotation, Pat Connaughton, I think was a second-round pick. DiVincenzo got hurt. Of course, he was a first-round pick, but, he was the 19th, 20th pick. Bobby Portis was, I think he was a first-round pick, but he wasn't necessarily some special, surefire talent. And he's been awesome with the Bucks when they played him. Bryn Forbes was an undrafted guy. Trying to think of some of the other guys, but I mean, this is a team of overachievers. This is a team of guys who have blown past, developmental hurdles, or Drew Holiday, which he has really good positional size, but this is a guy who credibly guards Kevin Durant despite being 9, I think he's given up 9 inches there. I mean, I don't see how you can't have a load of a blast rooting for this team. Everybody wants to criticize Mike Budenholzer. Well, he wins a lot of games in the regular season, but come to playoffs, blah, 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 blah. Well, with Atlanta, he took a team that didn't really have a true superstar. He made Jeff Teague into, an all-star. He made Paul Millsap a household name. He finally got the world to notice how great Al Horford was. and helped Kyle Korver become known as, rightfully so, maybe the best catch and shoot artist of our generation. Not non-Klay Thompson division, because I mean, holy crap, Klay. I mean, that team was incredible. But a lot of that had to do with Bud. We all knew that come playoff time, they were probably going to lose to the Cavs. It didn't matter. Or, wait, was it the Cavs or the Heat still? It's been so many years. But anyway, we all knew they were going to lose to, like, LeBron's team. But it was still fun. Like, they had a chance. Like, they had a shot. This Bucks team is better than any of his Atlanta teams. And it's different, but I would say for the postseason is better than last year's team. Giannis is a better player than he was last year. And people could say, well, his defense slipped. Yeah, there were times, but I think that was strategic. I think they were asking all their guys to kind of be careful about the energy they're expending, take care of themselves, pick and choose their spots more judiciously. The improvement between Bledsoe and Holiday, and you look at the stat line for Holiday and Bledsoe, and maybe you're like, is it really that much of a thing? And yes, it is. Middleton, of course, having the best season of his career. And Dante DiVincenzo was really showing out before getting hurt. And everybody was so excited to deal him for anything, including Bojan Bogdanovic. And even with like some of the ups for Bojan, especially after Nate McMillan got there, or not Bojan, Bogdan Bogdanovic. Bogdan really still kind of underwhelmed me this season. I really thought that he was going to really jump out and really show how good he is. And I'm still like that international Bogdan was finally going to show up in the NBA. And it still really hasn't happened yet. But Dante DiVincenzo looked very much worthy of his draft selection and definitely looks like someone who's going to help the Bucks long term. But we'll see what happens in the offseason. But this matchup is great. It's fun. Anyone who says it doesn't matter, they don't matter. Their opinions don't matter. No one cares. You're a sour sport. You're just a sauerkraut. Like, if you're so upset that Phoenix and Milwaukee are in the finals and you think that their teams don't matter, you're probably a Lakers fan. Or you're not really an NBA fan. You're a fan of stars and celebrities. You're a fan of, like, big-time media coverage and, like, whatever that comes with. You don't actually care about teams. You don't actually care about really the sport itself. Everyone who's making the argument that, like, Jokic winning MVP, like, being the best player in the league isn't helping ratings any. If not, that's fine, because that just means that people who aren't really interested in basketball are leaving the basketball to the people who actually care about it. And I want more people to enjoy the things that I like, but I don't want people clogging up conversations or, giving a skewed view of what people or what actual fans in the actual community care about. Oh, so what? I mean, and while the NBA should be worried about, falling ratings or whatever, ratings aren't falling because Jokic was the MVP. Ratings aren't going to fall. Or if they do fall because the Lakers aren't in the playoffs, then maybe instead of making sure that, the Lakers are in the playoffs or like some big market teams are in the playoffs, how about you market to those fans and bully them into watching like other teams? Which bully is a strong word, but I mean like if the teams with the biggest fan bases are the ones you want in the finals, well then how about you just make it a popularity contest rather than actually about basketball? Like maybe these Lakers, Nets, Knicks fans should just watch the NBA Finals because good basketball is being played, not because they're in, and not just not do it because they're salty because their teams aren't in it. I know I'm getting a little negative again, but the idea here is watch basketball for basketball. Because the basketball is good. This basketball is good. So with that being said, we're going to flip over here to, would you do what I ask? Oh my gosh. Why? Oh, I'm hitting the wrong button. That would be why. Blind guy fails at hitting the correct button. Who would have guessed my aim would be bad? Alright, let's go. I'm just going to go straight to the NFL homepage. By the way, for the All-Star game, Ohtani is getting the start at pitcher. I don't know what that... Let's see here. I need to double check something here. Let's line that up better. Yeah, there we go. Maybe. Let's see. We're probably going to see a little bit of my TV, side of my TV here, but got to get close so I can read. So let's check out some NFL headlines real quick. Or actually, you know what? Let's hit the NBA headlines first, since we were just talking about the NBA. 10 questions that will define summer of 2021 in the NBA. And of course, Kawhi Leonard's face is on there. He's probably going to opt out of his contract and then sign an extension with the Clippers because that's the most sensible move. Like, there's no reason to leave. Let's see. Monty Williams after Game 3 loss. We had 16 free throws to Giannis's 17. My gosh. The Magic, the Orlando, and this is another thing, some coaching hires that have happened. I can't remember if Rick Carlisle had been hired by the Pacers yet, the time I did my last stream, but that was a great hire by the Pacers. And then the Magic hired Mavericks assistant, I think it's Shane Mosley or something like that as head coach. Let's see. Team USA stunned by Nigeria in Olympic tune-up. Yeah, because they probably weren't taking it seriously. I have a feeling this year's U.S. team, even with Dame Lillard and some of those guys, like, I think it's going to end up being a joke. I just have a bad feeling about it. So it's Orlando Magic agree on 4-year deal with Dallas Mavericks assistant Jamal Mosley. I don't know why I thought Shane. Oh, because I was talking about boxing at camp last week. Anyway, to be new coach. I think that was a solid move by the Mavs. Luka really liked him. Mavs players had nothing but good things to say, which a lot of times that's the case. We'll see if it ends up working out, but I think that was a pretty good hire. Let's see. Rockets executive Tad Brown signs steps in as new CEO of NBA's Philadelphia 76ers, NHL's New Jersey Devils. Ted Brown has agreed to become CEO. Both holdings of Harris Blitzer Sports and Entertainment. Co-founder David Blitzer. Because, yeah, it's David Blitzer. And I'm trying to remember Harris's name because he's like the big, like, he's a big billionaire. He was the guy who was the brains behind hiring Sam Hinkie to Philly right after he bought the team. Brown spent the past 15 years as the CEO of the Houston Rockets, where he was the franchise's representative on the NBA's Board of Governors. Brown stepped down in Houston in April, probably because it seems like everyone else in that organization wants to have nothing to do with Tillman Fertitta. In 13 years together with the Rockets, Brown and Morey oversaw a 640 and 400 record, which is really impressive. The second best in the NBA during that stretch. They've long described a shorthand of understanding and conversation that has been beneficial in collaboration. Brown replaces Scott O'Neil, who recently departed as the Sixers Devils CEO. He will oversee business functions of the 76ers and Devils, including the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey, sources said. That's a really solid hire. He served on the NBA's media committee. I mean, yeah, that's a strong business hire for that organization. I think was there one other thing I wanted to click on over here? I guess that was it. Well, let's look at these questions here. Let's look at this article. Let's see what kind of big questions ESPN's got. Like last week they did like a big NBA draft questions thing. Is the salary cap impacted by COVID? Yes. It's projected to come in, salary cap's projected to come in at $112.1 million, only a 3% increase from last season. Ooh. For the second consecutive offseason, ESPN is projecting only 4 teams to have cap space. And this is why and I will continue to stress this, the NBA and the NBA salary cap and its financial structure is stupid. It's stupid. I repeat again, it's stupid. It makes no sense. By comparison, there were 15, 9, and 14 teams below the cap from 2017-18 to 2019-20, which is over 3 seasons, yeah. Which still, even before when, the cap was rising kind of like gangbusters in a way, the best they did was half the teams in the league were below the cap. The Dallas Mavericks, Toronto Raptors, and Chicago Bulls could join that group, but at the expense of their own key free agents. Tim Hardaway Jr., Kyle Lowry, and Lauri Markkanen, respectively. The Thunder could have up to $36 million in cap space, but have 4 large trade exceptions, $27.6 million to $9.6 million, and will likely act as a team over the cap. Which, yeah. Which position has the deepest group of free agents? The position of strength is point guard, which is the strongest position group in the league, period. So that's not a shock. See, Chris Paul, I think, could opt out of his contract. He's not going to. Let's see, some of the point guards. Mike Conley, Lonzo Ball, who's a restricted free agent, Spencer Dinwiddie, Dennis Schroeder, Reggie Jackson, who has rebuilt his value this offseason, Kendrick Nunn, who's restricted, and Devontae Graham, who's restricted, as well as Cameron Payne. Is Cameron Payne really a starting caliber point guard? Because I don't think he is. I think he's a bench player. He's a good one, but he's a bench player. Same, like, maybe Reggie Jackson, but it depends on the scenario. Like, how good is the talent around him? I don't know if Kendrick Nunn is a starting point guard yet. Dennis Schroeder, sure. Spencer Dinwiddie, sure. But I don't know. If Lowry does not return to the Raptors and signs with the Heat, which I guess is something people are kind of thinking is going to happen, and Schroeder goes to Chicago, the Knicks and perhaps the Mavericks are the lone teams that have money available with a starting point guard need. I'm looking at the Mavericks and I'm like, I thought Luka Doncic was the point guard. That's what everyone calls him, a point guard or a point forward. But most people list him when they vote for awards as a guard. They also have Jalen Brunson, who I like better than most of the guys that were listed in that thing up there. And they drafted Tyrell Terry, who they need to develop too. And I'm also like, if Chicago signs like Schroeder or a point guard, I guess that means that Thomas Satoransky was a mistake. That Kobe White isn't a point guard, and obviously can't start at shooting guard there. So I guess they should be trying to look to trade him for something else. Yeah, this is confusing. Like, the Knicks definitely have, I would say, a need at point guard, though. There's also a strong group of wings led by DeMar DeRozan, who's probably the best free agent who will be on the market. Tim Hardaway Jr., Norman Powell, who I really like, Duncan Robinson, Doug McDermott, Josh Hart, Kelly Oubre Jr., and Gary Trent Jr. I like that group better than the point guards, I think. I mean, that also depends on who's available, but like, Norman Powell's better than Tim Hardaway Jr., I would say. Robinson's an elite shooter. Doug McDermott was really, really good this year. And Gary Trent Jr. is an ascending player. Like, Is Phoenix the favorite to re-sign Chris Paul? Yes. I mean, I can't imagine him leaving there. Oh, what will happen with Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers? Now entering the offseason, we will learn if Leonard's decision to sign a short-term contract was financially motivated or if he wants to capitalize on options outside the Clippers. It was a business decision. He wanted to be in LA. That is the whole reason he went out there. Paul George has wanted to be in LA. Even back when he was with the Pacers. Like, I don't think Leonard's going to leave for New York, Dallas, or Miami. He wants to be in LA. This is so dumb. I don't care. Like, oh, what should we expect from the Lakers? So immediately, the first two teams they really bring up outside of they bring up Chris Paul. They bring up salary cap space. They talk about what position, and they talk about some teams. But the first two teams they really mention, like the teams they're constantly mentioning in this article, the Knicks, and they brought up the Lakers, or the Clippers and Lakers, and the Knicks are talked about in the Clippers part. I mean, this is just, this is so irritating. The next All-Star to get traded. And, of course, they've got Bradley Beal and Ben Simmons here. Because that's the other thing. All these insiders, they report on this stuff and they all talk about this stuff because they all want to talk about trades. This is what they want. They want the player movement. Because it means they get easy content. It's like they do their best to manufacture these things. And they're talking about the big money of the 2018 draft class. A year ago, the 2017 draft class, led by Jason Tatum, Bam Adebayo, Donovan Mitchell, and De'Aaron Fox, set a league record when it signed $1 billion in rookie extensions. That mark is expected to be smashed this offseason, which isn't a shock. You've got Ayton, who, let's face it, the Suns, I wouldn't even be shocked if they maxed him. But he's going to get a big deal. Doncic and Young, obviously getting maxed out. We'll see about Gilgeous-Alexander, whether it happens this offseason or going into next season. Michael Porter Jr. is up for an extension. And they're projecting, with those guys, $860 million in projected new money. And all five could sign maxes, which would also be a record. Then you've got Michael Bridges, Bridges is going to get a big contract. Kevin Huerter's postseason, I didn't even talk about him with the Hawks. He came out swinging this postseason. He made himself a lot of money. Colin Sexton's an interesting case. Dante DiVincenzo, before he got hurt, had proven that he was a worthy fifth starter for them, or fifth closer. Miles Bridges took a step forward this season with LaMelo feeding him. Robert Williams seems to be the center of the future in Boston still. Who knows? And then Jaren Jackson Jr. And see, they bring him up last. It's like anyone who's around Memphis looks at Jaren Jackson Jr. as the second tentpole stud next to John Morant. Now the injuries may keep him from getting the max, but if you're looking at all these guys, the guy who will likely sign a contract that he has the ability to outperform, if Jaren Jackson gets hit with a bit of an injury discount, boy, because he has as much potential as any of Ayton, Gilgeous-Alexander, Well, I don't know. Guys who can. But Jaren Jackson Jr. handles the ball. Like, he has insane potential still. And he's younger than most of those guys. Let's see, Oklahoma City. Does it add to its treasure chest of first-round picks? I don't know if they have anything to trade to get first-round picks at this point. Oh, wait. I forgot. They got Kemba Walker. Let's see. They got a first-round pick to take on Al Horford's contract, and then they got a first-round pick to send Horford back to Boston and take on Kemba. They got first-rounders to take on Chris Paul's contract when sending back Russell Wilson, and they got a first-round pick when they sent Chris Paul out to Phoenix. They could easily do that with Kemba Walker, too. They took on a first-round pick, in that deal that got him. They got a first-round pick back. I could see them getting a first-round pick for Kemba. Let's see. Is there a wild card team in free agency that nobody is talking about? And the picture is Memphis. Oh, gosh. I love our new front office, so I might trust them to spend money better than the previous one. But the last time we had cap space, we signed Chandler Parsons. After his time in Dallas. Not when he was coming off of his great time in Houston, but after Dallas and more injuries. I'd just rather pay and draft and extend people. So the Grizzlies face a decision on the $13 million team option of Justice Winslow. If we pick it up, they will operate as an over-the-cap team this summer. If they decline and let Winslow walk, Memphis could open up $22 million in cap space. And I've been on the Winslow, upside bandwagon for a while, but he's just still constantly hurt. And I don't know if he really fits our team. I think he's best as a point forward type on offense. Even though his catch and shoot jumper had been improving at the end or before he started getting all these injuries or this second wave of injuries. Towards I guess it was a couple years ago, he was actually shooting high 30s or low 40% from three, but we've got Kyle Anderson right now. So Jaren Jackson really seems to be our second scoring option. We've got Dylan Brooks, who when Jackson's hurt although it seems like he's fighting with Jackson and Morant sometimes for shots, and I don't like that really. Morant's of course our star and our big ball handler. I feel like we should flip Winslow for a more versatile combo wing. If Memphis elects to stay over the cap, it will rely on continuity with a roster that has 13 players under contract while also adding a first-round pick. And a second-round pick. Would another year of player development and a healthy Jackson be enough to push the Grizzlies into the top 6 in the West and avoid another trip to the play-in round? Perhaps. Yeah, see, I just don't know. But these teams operate in a 3-year window, and if the Grizzlies stand pat this year, they'll face big questions the following offseason. See, because the thing is, right now, we have this group of, interesting kind of young-ish veterans. Joseph Valanciunas isn't as old as you would think. Nowhere near as old as you think. And is really good. He's better than people give him credit for, and he's been really great with us. Kyle Anderson had a career year this year. Tyus Jones didn't seem to be as good as he was in year one with us. And Winslow, if his option is exercised, all those guys are on expiring contracts next season. Memphis also has a financial decision to make with Jackson and Grayson Allen, both of whom are extension eligible this summer. Unless Allen's extension is smaller than what I'm thinking it's going to be, I would imagine the Grizzlies would just sit and wait till restricted free agency on Grayson Allen. Jackson, I think it also depends because of the injury stuff. But I would not be shocked if Jaren Jackson ends up signing a multi-year extension that is not a max extension and maybe even lower than some people expect. With the Grizzlies package Anderson, Winslow, Dylan Brooks, and multiple first-round picks, we have 9 over the next 7 years to try to land the next disgruntled all-star. That'd be interesting. Because I would be totally willing to flip guys for a stud. It's not the character of this front office to do so. Well, that's because they haven't had the chance yet. But that is the kind of move that could take them from being a fringe playoff team to... And I agree with that. My thing, though, is... part of me really feels like our front court of the future is Jaren Jackson and Brandon Clark. But I also really like Jonas Valanciunas. So, I kind of want to move Valanciunas, but I only want to move him if, we're getting a good return. Because I think Valanciunas is an impactful winning player. Who are some of the under-radar free agents to keep an eye on? Let's see. Keep an eye on Rashawn Holmes and Doug McDermott. I mentioned Holmes earlier, and I think Rashawn Holmes is going to be... he's going to be a sneaky important free agent. I shouldn't even say sneaky. He's coming off a 2-year stretch with Sacramento in which he started 88 games, averaged 13 points, 8.5 rebounds. I don't know what the minutes per game was on that. Because he signed a 2-year contract, the most that the Kings can offer as a starting salary for 2021-22 is $10.7 million, or $1.2 million more than what the middle level exception is. League rules prevent the Kings from signing Holmes to a 1-year, $11 million contract. That would allow him to establish full bird rights and sign a more lucrative contract in 2022. Interesting. The Hornets could have $20.5 million in cap space if Cody Zeller and Malik Monk walk, which I think they probably should let Zeller walk. And maybe even Monk. Monk is an interesting player, though, in free agency, too, for me. They've made it known that there is a glaring need at the center position. Which I agree. I totally agree. And I think Rashawn Holmes would actually be a perfect fit in Charlotte. The way they want to play and with the personnel they have. Doug McDermott enjoyed career highs in points, 13.6 field goal percentage, 53.2 true shooting, 63.2 rebounds, 3.4. Seems lower than I would have expected. An offensive rating, 110.5 per game. 6th among all small forwards in offensive real plus minus. Since the All-Star break and the slew of injuries in Indiana, he shot 56.1% from the field and 41.5% from 3. Whew! And he was shooting amazing in the restricted area. They're $11 million below the luxury tax, and signing him would probably put them over. He's an interesting guy that I think would be interesting in Memphis because of his shooting. see some other stuff. Joel Embiid's potential 4-year, $190 million Supermax extension. Will Durant, Harden, and Irving sign extensions in Brooklyn? I'm going to say yes. Free agent options in New Orleans. How about how they tried to get off of Steven Adams' contract? Restricted free agency of John Collins, which I thought would have been a bigger deal, as good as the Hawks were this offseason, this postseason. I would have thought that, and I would have thought New Orleans, because of Zion, they've got, big headline there. Although, to be fair, I'm surprised there wasn't a question here. Is some team going to save Zion Williamson from New Orleans because, heaven forbid, he be in a smaller market than L.A. or New York City? The Warriors remaking their bench with the $5.9 million mid-level and veterans minimum exceptions. Future of Kevin Love. Does Team USA help us trade value? No. Anyway, that was longer than I meant to spend on that. So let's see, what time is it? How long I've been going? Man, I've already been going at like an hour and a half. Maybe I'll save the position stuff for tomorrow. But let's see some headlines real quick. Washington football team president. Warriors not an option for our name, or for new name. I don't know why it would be. The Golden State Warriors exist. Like, no. Oh, there was something crazy that happened with Berkevius Mingo here in the great state of Texas. Let's see what this is about. Noted or legendary ex-Broncos O-line coach Gibbs dies at age 80. Dang. That guy was awesome, by the way. That's a loss to the world. Report, Chiefs Frank Clark faces felony weapons charges. As if his contract couldn't get even more or even less valuable. XFL planning 2023 return after CFL talks halted. Or tabled, whatever. Didn't even know they were in talks. By the way, the XFL is owned by a group led by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. So, there's that. Oh, and N'Keal Harry's agent has requested that he be traded by the Patriots. Yeah, because it's the Patriots' fault that your client can't separate from coverage. So basically what ESPN has done is they've got, they're doing this top 10 list, and they've asked, I guess a group of, 50 coaches, scouts and executives, players, well, I guess and players too, to rank these players. And I think I'm going to deep dive into it tomorrow. Oh, wait, it wasn't this one. But I want to point something out to you real quick. So, this was day 2. So this is the interior defensive lineman. This is your defensive tackles, 3-4 defensive ends, nose tackles, stuff like that. Aaron Donald, obviously. So, obviously, Aaron Donald's number 1, right? Oh my gosh. I'm literally signed in. This happens every time. I don't understand. I believe that's the right one. Boom. I don't know why this article does this, but it does. I don't want to stream now though. I want my article back. I'm going to see if it opened it over here. Okay, yeah, it did. So, what we're going to do here is boom. And then we'll hit those news stories. But I just want to say, so I'm sitting here looking, and Aaron Donald's number 1. But notice, someone ranked Aaron Donald 4th. This man is a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. Arguably the best football player alive, or best non-quarterback in the NFL. Definitely the most valuable non-quarterback in the NFL. And someone ranked this man 4th at his own position. Either this was a jealous player, or what it seems to be, it was an executive or someone who oh yeah, I'm remembering reading it now. So, yes, someone voted Donald 4th. That particular voter prioritized youth and upside. This is not like, this list is a top 10 best, not top 10 for the future. This is this year top 10. And my thing is, Aaron Donald is 30. He's at the peak of his power, and defensive tackles tend to age better than a lot of other positions, especially elite and guys who maybe are undersized for the position and are really good athletes. They tend to age well. There is no one in the NFL for any reason who should be ranked ahead of Aaron Donald. And whoever it was should have been slapped across the face and reminded that this is Aaron Donald we're talking about. There are some things like I get subjective, there's some taste, whatever. This is objective. This man is the best non-quarterback in the NFL. The most valuable player who is not a quarterback in the NFL. And you ranked him 4th in his own position. I want to know who this person is so we can laugh at him on Twitter. I know I said like positivity. I am being positive about Aaron Donald. And it's not a disservice to any other players. But this person needs to be reminded that this is Aaron Donald. And that I don't know what their thought process is, but it's hilariously bad if it came to any decision other than Aaron Donald number 1. This isn't the top 10 defensive tackles or the top 10 interior linemen for 2024 ranked today. This isn't the 10 best interior defensive linemen of the future. This is the top 10 defensive linemen right now. Interior linemen right now. What are you doing? Yes, my voice is cracking. I'm kind of doing that on purpose. This is stupid. That number right there, that 4, I'm pointing at it on the screen, but look at the screen. There's a 4 there. I'm going to make sure that I don't think my camera is in the way. It shouldn't be. No. There is a 4 right there. That shouldn't be there. Whoever that person is, they should be embarrassed and ashamed. Like, my gosh. We're going to get into these rankings tomorrow because I thought about waiting till they're all out. And maybe right now I could just go through and I'll just do the edge rushers and actually, they released the quarterbacks. How about we go through these interior linemen and then we'll go through the quarterbacks and the edge rushers and then maybe the quarterbacks. Now we'll just do the defensive line, like the front guys. And then we'll get into some others tomorrow or throughout the week. We'll take a couple, 2 or 3 positions a day. So Aaron Donald obviously should be number 1. He's ridiculous. I think Chris Jones is number 2 is another solid choice. And I wouldn't be shocked if he was the number 1 guy for whoever the person was that had Donald at 4, because Chris Jones is 4 years younger. But I don't know how much better Chris Jones can get. DeForest Buckner's 27. So once again, you look at the rankings. Actually, Chris Jones' highest ranking is 2. Oh, I remember who it is now. I remember who got the number 1 vote now. And we're going to have a laugh, even though I really, really, really like the player. So Chris Jones, highest ranking 2, lowest ranking 5. So obviously, Aaron Donald, the consensus is this guy is tier of his own, except for that one dude. Or heck, they're women executives. It could have been a woman. Let's not just limit, it to men. There are women who work in the NFL, have positions in the NFL, have been successful. They could also have been asked, and they could be wrong too. Let's be equal opportunity here. I'm not laughing because women working in the NFL. That's not it at all. That's not it. I'm just like, actually, it might not be a man. It could be a woman. They're just as capable. So, and they are in that regard, like in terms of talent evaluation. Not as capable of becoming, or not at all as capable of physically doing the jobs of Aaron Donald, Chris Jones, but, So, anyway, Chris Jones, number 2. DeForest Buckner, his highest ranking was 2, lowest 6. And I think that's fair. He was 4th last year. Chris Jones was number 2 last year. And Buckner's ridiculous. And then Cam Hayward. And this is where you kind of start to see, his highest ranking was 2, but his lowest was 11. So we're kind of starting to fade into a different tier here. Hayward was 6th last year. He's 4th this year. He's 32. Hayward's been really, really good for a long time. But I don't know if he's elite. I don't even really know if he's top 5 interior lineman. His consistency is incredible. He wasn't in the top 5 for everyone, but he rarely fell past number 7 on ballots. And I think that's fair. And see, this is the thing. Last year, Hayward being top 5 would have made a little more sense because the only real knock on him is he might have missed a few sacks this year. He only had 4 last year, down from an average of 8.5 over the previous 2 seasons. Hayward is an extremely disruptive interior pass rusher. And he is part of one of the best defensive lines in the league and most talented. Great at getting into passing lanes. He's a great run defender, great pass rusher. And this one I found interesting. So 30-year-old Fletcher Cox, who he and Aaron Donald are the same. I think Cox will turn 31, though, during the season or something like that. He was drafted a year before, or 2 years before Donald. Because he was drafted in 2012. Donald was 13 or 14. I was kind of shocked he wasn't higher. I kind of expected him to be number 3 or number 4. Because there was up until the last couple of years, after Aaron Donald, pretty much everyone had Fletcher Cox as their number 2 defensive tackle. It seemed like he was the consensus guy. See, he was 3 last year. His highest ranking this year was 3. Lowest ranking was 12. Cox has made 6 Pro Bowls in 9 seasons. And, calling him one of the defining DTs of the last decade, totally true. He was still productive. 6.5 sacks. But only 9 QB hits, his lowest total since 2014. Yeah, but there were a lot of injuries on that defensive line. There was a lot of weirdness with the Eagles team last year. I still think Cox is really good. This was the first shock. Because I love Jeffrey Simmons, but 6th? He was really good, and he's really disruptive. But you look at this range.
Highest ranking 3rd. Lowest ranking 15th. He wasn't ranked last year, obviously, because last year he was going into year 2. This will be year 3 for him. No one is Aaron Donald, but he might be the closest. And I don't necessarily disagree with this. Going into the 2019 draft, there was the biggest argument I heard. Well, should I say biggest argument? It seemed pretty easy for everyone that like Nick Bosa was the top non-quarterback draft pick. Although there were some people who were like Quinnen Williams. There are a lot of people who are like, I mean, Quinnen Williams is really quick, like really great top end speed at the combine. But there were a lot of people who were like, Jeffrey Simmons isn't far off of him, and he's more powerful and like his technique was better. Most big boards I saw had, or before he got hurt, training for the combine, like towards ACL, a lot of people had him 4th, 5th, 6th, like in that range. There were some people who had him ranked ahead of Quinnen Williams. Not many, but there were a lot of people who had him right there with a similar grade. Added an NFC exec. He is the one everyone knows is coming. Talent-wise, he's probably top 3, which is crazy. He's respected as such, at least how we block him. And that should tell you something. A NFC executive is saying, like, this guy's scary. And while he hasn't put up, like, Aaron Donald numbers, or he's not, like, he's not there yet, we know he's going to get there, and we're terrified that we're going to be the team that, like, that means that teams are terrified that they're going to be the breakout game for Jeffrey Simmons. That's an interesting quote. Opponents double team Simmons on 190 pass rush snaps, higher than every interior rusher aside from Aaron Donald and Grady Jarrett. And it's interesting because I'm surprised Grady Jarrett hadn't shown up yet. Simmons led all players in the top 10 in interior line run stop win rate at 39.8%, which let that sink in. That's higher than Donald. That's higher than Buckner. That's higher than more run-stuffy defensive tackles. Oh, wait, sorry. This is in, like, this top 10 rankings. Still, that's better than all these other established star linemen. The pass rush production isn't there yet. He had just 3 sacks in 2020, along with a 6.7% pass rush win rate. Once again, though, he was double teamed almost as much as Aaron Donald, and no one's Aaron Donald. It also didn't help that he didn't really have a whole lot of help either outside of Harold Landry when it came to rushing the quarterback last season. And he's another year removed from that torn ACL. Highest upside. He just does different stuff and was basically playing on one leg and was pretty good early on, an AFC scout said. And that's true. Like, his rookie year, he came back during the season after tearing his ACL, like, in January, the end of January, beginning of February. Like, and he was really, really good for us and impactful for us by the playoffs. Like, he was a huge part of why our run defense was so good in short yardage situations against the Ravens in that playoff game. Now we got Leonard Williams. Highest ranking was 4th. Some people didn't have him ranked because they were ranking to 15 on these ballots. There are some people who didn't have Leonard Williams in their top 15. A little shocking. He wasn't even ranked last year, but he had a huge year. The most polarizing player on the list, which isn't a shock, Williams was labeled an underachiever before 11.5 sacks last season, which prompted a massive contract. He doesn't know what he can be yet. He's 27. But Williams has insane tools. Said a Pro Bowl defensive player. That's interesting. Adding an NFC scout. That combination of size and athleticism is just rare. And it's true. It's true. And he can play off the edge. He can play in the interior. But some people believe this might be a little bit of an anomaly. Doesn't put it together consistently. One veteran NFL defensive coach said, wasn't sure what he was looking at when he evaluated Williams' tape during the player's tenure with the Jets. Last year was not shocking based on his ability, and my guess is he'll have a similar year in 2021, the coach said, but it's hard to tell with him. And that's the interesting thing, because, like, and this is a guy, Stephen Tuitt, who's 28, ranked 8. Here's the guy who got the number 1 ranking. He's the only one you see on this list with a number 1 for highest ranking other than Aaron Donald. Now, my thing is, we're talking about upside here. If upside, like age and upside and durability, I don't know how that turned on my console, but okay. I don't see how his upside at 28, like he's 2 years younger than Donald. He's like should be at his in his prime. I don't know how he has more upside than Donald. He had a career season last year with 11 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 25 quarterback hits, and I love Tuitt. Tuitt's great. And I think there's an argument to be made that he and Cam Hayward are kind of right there together. I think all these guys, like, I think there's an argument to be made that, like, Williams and Tuitt should be higher than Simmons. I wouldn't be shocked if the guy who voted Tuitt 1 and Donald 4 is the one who voted Simmons 3. If we're talking about upside stuff, but the fact that there are people who had Tuitt unranked is shocking to me. Because he's been better and more consistent than Leonard Williams. And he had basically this as impactful a season as Leonard Williams last year. So I think that's kind of shocking. Incredibly gifted player, NFC Scout said. Comes and goes, but when he's on, he's a massive problem. And that's been a little bit of the heat is, it seems like sometimes he's not on, but I don't always agree with that. That problem manifests in defensive attention. Tuitt demanded 187 double teams on pass rushes, 6th most in the league, despite playing alongside stars Hayward, TJ Watt, and Bud Dupree. Dupree missed most of last season with an injury. What? Or at least he missed a lot of it. Take away the injuries, that's been the bigger thing than the inconsistencies from past years, and he's top 5 easily, an AFC exec said. Hayward has been that guy on the Steelers' D-line for a while, but kind of started to flip this year when Tuitt got some of the attention, which he's 4 years younger than Hayward. This one was a little bit of a shock because I was kind of shocked to see a nose tackle this high. Not that anyone who's listened to me talk on this channel knows your boy has an affinity for the big men in the middle of defenses. I love me some nose tackles. Unsung heroes. But Vea's more than just a nose tackle. Highest ranking 5, lowest 14. Watching Vea crash through an offensive line can be an experience through space and time. He's massive. So, serious physics of mass and explosion, one NFL GM said when asked to describe Vea. The 6'4", 347-pounder doesn't have the gaudy stats, but doesn't need them. His one tackle in 2 playoff games doesn't begin to describe his impact. And that's the thing. A lot of nose tackles don't get a ton of, like, tackles. the man wrecks worlds. Like, these big guys, they make life easier on others because if you don't double the guy, he's going to run over the center. Like, he's going to collapse the pocket. He's going to push the center back, make bigger gaps for the linebackers in the run game. You've got to double the guy, at least. Size with quickness. He had basically a 5-second 40-yard dash at 3:47, which is retarded. Like, his acceleration at his size is incredible. Once he got back in the playoffs, they were different. You couldn't do anything against them, said an NFC executive. Vita can rush the passer. Has force. More Debo. Oh, talking about the character from Friday. Not a craftsman. If he wants to get in, he gets in. Basically, like, this man ain't doing all kind of, hand fighting. Like, he's not using a lot of technique. He's just big, he's strong, and he's just throwing people around. And that's true. Then here's Grady Jarrett at 10, highest ranking 4, lowest ranking 14. He was 9th last year. I was shocked to see him drop. His pass rush win rate, and especially against single teams, like, he's so good. He was second to Donald among defensive tackles in several pass rush categories. But evaluators say he's not a fit for every scheme. He's small against the run, 6 foot, 305 pounds. He is undersized and can get washed out of plays with double teams. But not everyone agrees. And I find myself in disagreement there. Because Aaron Donald's not that much bigger than Grady Jarrett. I think Donald's only like 6'1", like 310, maybe 315, if that. Like, Donald's also an undersized guy. Now, he's not as good as Donald. But Grady Jarrett's really good. And he wrecks plays. Yeah, you could say some double teams. His interior run stop win rate is second best on this list at 39.3, right behind Jeffrey Simmons and ahead of Aaron Donald. So if the idea here is he is small against the run and get washed out of plays with double teams, that statistic kind of says, what are you talking about, Willis? I mean, he's really good, and not everyone's Vita Vea. Jarrett, it's like if you're sitting here like he doesn't fit every scheme, as in like he's not a nose tackle. Okay, well Vita Vea is an awesome nose tackle. He can't he's not really good for anything else. That doesn't mean he's not like worthy of being a top 10 player at the position. I think that's just insane. Some honorable mentions here. I love Kenny Clark. Like I'm a little shocked that Vea made the top 10 because like there's still like, as much as I love nose tackles, there's still like a limit on your value. I was really shocked to see Jeffrey Simmons up here. Like, if I'm just being honest. And I guess because I think of Hayward as an end, I forget like he's a 3-4 end, so he's an interior player. But Kenny Clark is another really good player at the position. I wouldn't have been shocked if he was in the back end. Jonathan Allen of the Redskins, he's so good. But I'm not shocked he's not top 10. Quinnen Williams has insane potential. And this is something that's really correct here. With Adam Gase there, they had Quinnen Williams playing in a two-gap scheme they were not using him to his strengths. Salah is going to have him in that DeForest Buckner, Eric Armstead type roles. He's going to be attacking, penetrating, hitting a gap. Quinnen Williams is going to have a breakout this year, and he will probably be a top 10 guy. I think he's going to bust the party. J.J. Watt's not in the top 10, but because of injuries, that's not a shock. If he stays healthy, he's still a monster. He got tripled some games. Teams still give him that attention. Tackles can handle him, but against the guard, he's still a problem. Not out of the realm of possibility to have a 10-sack season still. Yep. Akeem Hicks, another just really, really outstanding player. But he's on the wrong side of 30 now. I thought it was interesting seeing David Onyemata there for New Orleans. But he's been the constant with all the injuries and rotation at the spot next to him at D-tackle. He's been really, really good. Jaron Reed got a vote for the Chiefs, despite the fact Pro Football Focus thinks he's not good at all. It also depends on if he's healthy or not in trouble. But Jaron Reed is a really, really good interior pass rusher, but I don't think he's top 10. I don't even know if I'd put him top 15. Eric Armstead of San Fran. He's a really good player. You're always aware of him, but never scared of him. NFC executive. I get that. And then Calais Campbell, who historically would have been higher on these lists, he can still be productive in that defense, just not sure how much he has left. Because, like, Calais Campbell's in his mid-30s. Actually, I think of all the guys, he's the oldest here. Him and, I think, JJ. I think JJ's older than Cam as well. I don't think they're the same age. I think JJ's like 33. I think Campbell's like 35. Might be turned 36 in the season. I mean, he's in his mid-30s. But Campbell's great. Definitely worthy of an honorable mention here. Deron Payne, who plays nose, or kind of like is the bigger bodied of their interior linemen in Washington. I feel like he might have been an honorable mention last year. But he's got incredible talent and upside too. So yeah. Anyway, I've done enough today. It's been like 2 hours. Let's call this stream. It's good to be back. I don't think there's an NBA Finals game today because there was one last night. So yeah. So I won't have that to talk about tomorrow. So what tomorrow we'll probably dive into, we don't have another Finals game until Wednesday. Why are we doing games every like 3 days? Especially like when it's not like they're traveling. It's not like, they were traveling from Phoenix to Milwaukee. Like, they're in Milwaukee already. There's no reason to have 2 days without a game. See, this is the stuff that the NBA does that I just think is stupid with their scheduling. Like, I just feel like Wednesday night's a bad time to put on like a live sporting event. Like, especially one that's that important. But anyway, we'll talk. We'll get into like the rest of these top 10s tomorrow. So let's hit up these last couple articles. Kansas City Chiefs defensive end Frank Clark charged with felony weapons possession from March arrest. One felony weapons violation stemming from his arrest on March 13th. Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office said that had charged the 28-year-old Clark with one felony count of possession of an assault weapon. Clark was arrested in March along with another man when officers said they found 2 loaded firearms in their vehicle after a traffic stop. Clark was also arrested last month in Los Angeles in a separate incident in which police officers allegedly saw a submachine gun in his car, but that remains under investigation. Which, by the way, if I'm not mistaken, it was in a bag that apparently belonged to Clark's bodyguard, and I want to say that was reported as an Uzi. Said that at the time of the arrest, on suspicion of having a concealed firearm in a vehicle, that the gun belonged to Clark's bodyguard. Okay, yeah. Clark's attorney, Alex Spiro, said at the time of his arrest on suspicion. According to the Star, Clark's scheduled to be arraigned for that for the charge stemming from the March incident on July 14th. So this guy got convicted 2 times in 3 months for basically the same stupid crap. Well, I say stupid crap. You know the laws, but I guess you're gangsta. You know. You gotta be strapped up. You gotta have guns on you, and you can't conceal them properly. 'Cause like this is my thing. I have no problem with people carrying around firearms. They ain't shooting nobody with them. Ain't no reason. They shouldn't be allowed to have them. But that's the law. Clark was previously, and see, they're going to tag this here. Clark was previously arrested in 2014 on suspicion of domestic violence over an incident at an Ohio hotel, leading to his removal from the University of Michigan team. He eventually pleaded guilty to a lesser charge of disorderly conduct, which meant they didn't have enough to actually get him on domestic violence, but they made him believe that they did. I don't know whether he did anything or not, but, you know. It seems really stupid that you got arrested in March and then you get arrested in June and the same thing, and it's basically the same thing. Like, it's just kind of, don't be stupid. And this one's a little more dicey. Berkevius Mingo's lawyer scolds Atlanta Falcons for releasing linebacker following arrest. The lawyer for linebacker Berkevius Mingo has chastised the Atlanta Falcons for releasing the veteran after he was charged with indecency with a child / sexual contact. We are extremely disappointed in the Atlanta Falcons' rush to judgment in terminating Berkevius Mingo's contract before gathering all of the relevant facts and prior to my client having his day in court. Mingo's legal counsel, Chris Lewis, said in a statement given to ESPN's Adam Schefter, "The accusation against Mr. Mingo is a lie. Berkevius knows it. So does his accuser." Ooh, that's a strong statement. Mingo was released by the team Saturday after the Falcons were made aware of his Thursday arrest on the second-degree felony charge. According to Tarrant County records, Tarrant County again. Weird. Mingo was released on $25,000 bond Friday. Sorry, there's a few different legal cases I'm following that happened to take place in Tarrant County. The charge carries a maximum penalty of 20 years in prison under Texas state law. As it should, if he's guilty. Because you don't mess with minors. Gotta love Texas state law. According to the state penal code, indecency with a child, explicit contact, relates to engaging in sexual contact with someone younger than 17 years of age or causing the child to engage in sexual contact, as in maybe forcing two minors to, engage in that kind of conduct. Which in the state of Texas is anyone under the age of 17. An arrest warrant obtained Monday by ESPN details the allegations by a then 13-year-old boy. Okay, so this wasn't part of the report on Thursday. We didn't have this information. Who saw Mingo, or who says Mingo pulled at his underwear and touched him inappropriately in July 2019. The boy says he and a friend were staying at a hotel with Mingo after a trip to an amusement park and restaurant, according to the warrant. Well, why were they staying at a hotel with him? Lewis said his client will be fully vindicated when the truth comes to light. When that happens, the true motivation of the accuser will be clear and unambiguous. Well, obviously, because of rightful laws, we don't know who this accuser is. And at this point, we don't know their relationship to Mingo because of that. So, Mingo signed a 1-year contract with the Falcons in March. The 2013 first-round pick by the Cleveland Browns has bounced around the NFL since being traded to the New England Patriots in 2016, playing for 5 different teams over the past 5 seasons, including the Chicago Bears in 2020. I mean, that's a crazy allegation. Then 13, if it was 2019, July 2019, this kid, will just be turning 15 right now. And so those persons are protected as minors. But it's going to be interesting, like, if the public even gets any facts of, like, what happened. Because if, let's say, the accuser is proven to be lying or whatever, all we're going to get, we're probably still not going to get any of that information, really. We're just going to find that the trial has ended or he has been found not guilty or whatever. But we're not going to know the relationship or much of the information to protect that minor's identity, meaning that questions could still, rage on, which they will regardless, about Mingo, even if he's acquitted. And this might sound bad, but it's like every time I see these, I hope that it's a hoax. Like, I hope it's someone lying, because I'd rather have to deal with the fallout of someone lying about these things than, like, a grown man having actually molested, like, a 13-year-old boy. You know what I mean? But we'll see what happens there. Really don't want to end the show on that. So let's find one other thing. Oh, you know what? Let's talk about this one last thing. So yesterday, we had the European final. Oh, I didn't realize the Gold Cup had started. You mean we only scored 1 goal on Haiti? Were we not even trying? Anyway, that's not what I'm worried about. I'm worried about the Euros. So Italy beat England in the Euros. And there was a little bit... Wait a second. So they decided the golden boot by using assists as a tiebreaker, so Ronaldo gets the Euro 2020 Golden Boot over Schick. That sucks. Oh, that's a load of crap. All right. And there's European soccer making me mad by doing stupid stuff again. So the big thing here is So anyway, so what happened in yesterday is, it was 1-1. They go into and do penalties, and England's coach decided I'm trying to see if they're going to get to that. So basically what ends up happening is Gareth Southgate decided to pull players who had been playing and pull guys who had more experience taking penalty kicks and putting guys who were not the penalty kick takers for their teams, who don't take penalty kicks. So, like Jack Grealish and Jordan Henderson were pulled off, and they put Bakary Saka, who does not take penalties for Arsenal, and Jadon Sancho, who does not take penalties for Dortmund, although he may have already been in the game. And while Mo Salah does typically take penalties for Liverpool, Jordan Henderson has done a lot of set-piece work for Liverpool over the years. He has taken penalties for Liverpool in the past. I believe he's taken penalty kicks for England in the past, although not been like a main guy. And though apparently recently, like some people were saying that maybe James Milner for Liverpool, when Mo Salah was off, he took penalties. But I think I do believe Henderson is a usual or is one of their options. There was someone else they put on. I'm trying to remember who it was. For the penalty taking, but they end up losing on penalties, and Jack Grealish came out and defended the manager, which I get that, and I think you could say like there's some heat to be placed there, like maybe you picked the wrong guys. At the end of the day, though, guys missed. Italy made. That's the game. You should have won it during play. Which, here's another thing. I think that Mark Ogden makes a great point here. What if Gareth Southgate was more like Pep Guardiola than Jose Mourinho? England had a wealth of attacking talents. Jadon Sancho, Phil Foden, Marcus Rashford, Jack Grealish. They didn't get the opportunities to make a difference like probably they should have. I mean, you have Harry Kane who created a bunch of their chances, but like they played, I think the style they played hurt them against Italy. Whereas if they had really pressed the attack, I mean, Southgate decided to wait and go for penalties. And I just think that was bad. Let's see here. And I think, once again, Ollie has a really good point here, too. England just cannot develop like a deep-lying playmaker type. a Luka Modric, a Frankie de Jong, a Marco Verratti. Like, they just don't have that guy. They cannot develop that guy for whatever reason. And that hurts them too. What if Southgate had brought Rashford and Sancho on a little earlier so their pace could have made more... and so they could have played into a little more shape before having to take penalties. I don't think there's any way or any reason to judge anything he did before this game poorly, but man, let's see who they talk about being the best player. But Italy earned this win. They played great throughout this tournament. Donnarumma, definitely the goalkeeper of the tournament. He's been awesome. The fact that or that Chiellini is still playing at as high a level as he is incredible. Leonardo Bonucci, who scored Italy's lone goal during play, and his passing in the back, just outstanding. Which his chemistry with Chiellini as well is just absurd. Jorginho, who is that deep-lying playmaker type that Italy has that England lacks. And then Chiesa playing down the wings. I don't know. Or in attack. I think it's interesting. Raheem Sterling had a great tournament. Anyway, Euros happen. Let's end on that. I kind of got a little slowed down there. Well, that's another YouTube video. I don't want YouTube to think I'm trying to steal someone else's content. Whoopsie. So anyway, that's the show for today. It went a little long because it's been so long. I'm sorry. We'll have shorter shows. We're going to get back to that like hour 15, hour and a half kind of time frame for the rest of the week because I have topics, but there was so much to catch up on and just got a little carried away today. But anyway, I will see y'all tomorrow, 2:30-ish, and we'll talk about some NFL football, some players, who's actually good, who's not. Actually, we won't talk about who's not, but we will talk about those top 10s.